Hi all, welcome back to Make More Bonsai, John here. I'm thrilled to finally get to share with you a styling session with this Bonsai Juniper. Not only because it's a good looking tree and it'll be really fun to push this into a more refined look and feel, but also this tree brings to light a fairly useful discussion, which is, when is a tree ready to make that conversion from being under development to refinement and looking more like a finalized bonsai tree? If we look at it in its current state, we can see there's tons and tons of healthy growth, lots of long-running shoots and foliage groupings, heaps of evidence that this tree is strong and healthy and ready to rock, with plenty of branches to choose from to apply wire and shape into an attractive bonsai for sure. It's roughly 60 years old. I became the owner of this tree when I won it after it was used for a demonstration around the mid-1990s. Fun, right? Here's what it looked like way back then. Before the demo, it was pretty big and bushy. The branches were all wired out and trimmed to set up a style for the demo, and frankly, I was just thrilled to have an oldish juniper to add to my Frankenstein lab. The result of the work done during the demo, however, was too stressful for the tree. Over the course of that summer, it had declined in health. It wasn't growing at all, and the foliage was losing the healthy green color and turning more gray. I decided to step it up into a larger pot and place it into a shady location to care for it and return it to health. And that did work out pretty well, so good times. I guess the point is, someone somewhere decided it was time to create a bonsai out of the tree at the stage it was in, and began the refinement into bonsai at that time. It's a pretty subjective decision. Now that I was the owner of the tree, it was up to me to decide when and what to do. I'm going to elevate this tree on this milk crate so I can see into the tree easily with my eyes around the center of the viewing angle of the tree. I swear, milk crates are the unsung hero of bonsai tools, a real multitasker in the bonsai tool chest. Once elevated, I can start to clean up the tree, looking for branches that will add the most to the design. Right away, we can identify that main branch has foliage growing out toward the front that can be removed. There is plenty of structural branches to choose from behind it. It does have some girth to it, so the possibility to convert it into a gin feature on that branch may be the way to go. In this case, removing all the foliage, but leaving the thicker branch behind opens up the opportunity to add value to the design if it can be used somehow. If it's removed, that possibility is gone forever. So take your time, weigh the options, and it can always be removed later in the session if it isn't needed. As it turns out, this branch is in a great location for a gin to add character to the design. Removing the live tissue is quick work, just by using pliers, crush and rip and tear off an area to rough out that gin. Once that's finished, it's time to clean out that main branch, selecting which branches will be placed with wire. So let's consider what to look for when cleaning the foliage on this juniper. Many junipers, like Bonsai, send out lots of buds, kind of all over the place. These new buds radiate all around the main runner, as well as along the trunk, the main branch, and often spaces between the branches. These new buds and young shoots are all on a mission. Reach for light, make food, make new branches. Many buds and shoots are useful to enhance the tree and improve branch ramification. Other buds, however, end up in places where they aren't able to produce much for the tree. This new growth is not as efficient since they are shaded, which reduces the sugar production through photosynthesis. And many of them are not as strong as other branches. They can actually draw energy from the tree to grow and extend. This energy can be better used to support the design. Many of these inefficient shoots reside on the underside of a branch. Removing them will enhance the branch silhouette by helping maintain a clean line on the bottom of the branch, which helps separate the branches in the design. Shoots that emerge parallel to each other, removing one side and then alternating the foliage up through the branch, will help open the area up for light and air to pass through the foliage, as well as maintaining an overall asymmetrical layout of the ramified branches. The final profile of the branch should be a series of alternating foliage masses along the sides, with some branches left on top to provide some volume when needed in the design. Doing all of this also opens up a more clear path for wire to be applied to the branches. Now that the right side branch is cleaned up, let's look to the lower left side of the tree. That is what used to be the old main trunk of this juniper before the top was removed. I'm not really sure what to do with it. I mean, sure, it can simply be trimmed off, or, well, sawed off. That would really show off the extreme angle change moving to the left, then that steep acute right angle turn. That really is a sweet chef's kiss of a trunk curve, so sawing all of that off is not a bad idea really. If there's one thing this tree has taught me over the time I've had it, it's try not to rush into anything. Let's see if there's something to be made of that leftover trunk. One thing is for sure, we don't need all the foliage, since it's drawing resources that could be used to develop the rest of the tree, so removing it and starting the process of creating gin will help push that forward in development and help decide a more clear path moving forward. I'll be using a variety of tools and methods to start to reveal the heartwood while creating the gin. Those leftover branches are popping out at really awkward angles, so reducing them and slowly removing the material may help improve things design-wise. Using a pair of pliers, crush the outer bark and live cambium to help separate it from the wood underneath. With those same pliers, grab and peel away portions of the wood. Ripping and breaking the branch into a rough shape will help sort of simulate what happens when a branch is torn off a tree in nature. Each grab will tear off and reveal some texture, which is essential for a natural appearance. The needle nose pliers are really useful to grab small shards and create finer texture. When it comes to the thicker part of the trunk, I'm using this specialized bonsai tool called a trunk splitter. It has sharp claws that will bite into the wood and long handles to offer enough leverage to cut through. These can be used effectively to accurately remove a section without cracking the outside of the tool's bite. In this case, I'm not concerned with preserving anything opposite the bite of the tool, so it's great for making quick work of making sections that will be torn off while creating a gin because it has these long handles that make splitting the wood easy. This also makes the trunk splitter another great multitasker for your bonsai toolkit. Since I'm in no rush with this tree, obviously, I think I will need to finish wiring this tree to truly assess what value this area has to offer. My hope is to use the gin and shari behind that curve to create contrast and also shape it in a way that enhances the trunk, not distract from it. For that, I think I will need some time to pass to allow the living portions to swell a bit to help delineate the active tissue from the dead vein sections. Next spring we could explore this together in a video and really take a deeper dive into this process. The main focus today is setting up the branches for the best possible outcome in spring. After 25 or so years, what's another 6 months when it comes to refining a juniper bonsai? Let's return to that earlier discussion about when a tree is ready for refinement. If we leap forward like 25 years from the 90s to the present, after the tree recovered from the stress from the previous styling that weakened it, I had long since decided that the original styling was to be abandoned. Since its recovery, I chose to allow it to grow out, to thicken the trunk and add more character to the tree. I would review the tree every year to see if I was able to make a choice of styling direction. During that time, I think maybe 700 or so cuttings were grown from what was trimmed every year, so we made good use of our time together. Then, finally I saw what needed to happen. After turning the tree about 30 degrees and tilting it another 30, that one branch that was pretty low on the tree would make a really awesome main trunk. That would mean removing all of the rest of that fairly long trunk. It would certainly improve the overall design, but it seemed like such a waste of well-aged bonsai material. So I did what the name of this channel drives me to do, Make More Bonsai. I decided to air layer the top to create a new bonsai. One that had a pre-aged, short, thick trunk with plenty of branches to work with. That air layer was successful and it was removed from the main tree. That tree was featured in this video where the initial styling was performed. There's got to be some kind of life lesson or profound, quotable something or another there that makes a quarter of a century worth of patience or persistence mean something cool. I'm coming up with nothing now, but maybe if you think of something, please share it in the comments below. And remember to add #bonsai to your comment, as well as like and subscribe to be included in the 5,000 subscriber channel goal giveaway of this here Chinese Elm. The winner will be announced in a video on this channel, so stay tuned. That lucky winner will also need to live in the continental United States. So, like I was saying, if you think of something to say that would add to the conversation, I'm sure someone will appreciate it. I know I will. Once the air layer was removed, it was all systems go with this tree. 2 years ago, an initial styling was performed to create the main trunk from that groovy looking branch. Some basic branch placement was set up as well. The following year, the roots were pruned for the first time in 25 years, when it was placed into a shallow growing pot and left to fully recover and get established as prep for some full-on no-holds-barred bonsai training. Here are some goals for this fall session. Create view portals into the tree as strategic areas of interest. Create spaces among the branches to delineate each one. These separations will also allow the eye to rest within the design on areas of interest. Begin to form the apex with the branches at the top. Further cleaning and removing unwanted growth is necessary to reveal what else the tree has to offer design-wise. One thing that is an advantage on this tree is this trunk, which used to be a branch that was already undergoing some arrangement and development from way back when, has a lot of branches that are already kind of well placed from the process years ago. However, some of them are maybe a little too thick to help create the illusion of proportion higher up on the tree. Generally, branches higher up on a tree will be younger and therefore not as thick as the older, lower branches. Applying a basic concept, which is wider equals older, a primary branch emerging from the trunk would be widest there, then becoming progressively narrow as it extends outward. So the challenge here is to work toward enhancing those proportions over the next few years. For that, I will need to change their direction and spread them out to expose them to more light. When new growth emerges in the spring, there will be access closer to the trunk, which will encourage buds to form and extend into some narrow branch choices to be made and developed next summer. Over the next few growing seasons, these narrow branches will replace the longer, thicker extensions that are being used now, leaving only the first few inches emerging from the main trunk. Also, I'm focusing on placing those into a natural-looking position, then adding gentle curves onto the branch as it extends outward to fill the space. This will create attractive, kind of placeholders for those future branches as they develop over time and add ramification to the area. This process of removing old, out-of-proportion branches and replacing them with new growth that is better in proportion with everything else will be an ongoing activity throughout the time this tree is grown as a bonsai. It's part of the partnership with the tree when practicing bonsai, among you guiding the design, the tree itself responding to that guidance, and time allowing the tree to do its thing over time, then returning to add additional adjustments in response to the tree's progress. We really want this tree to look as good as it can as we refine the branch structure. So this process enhances the tree both horticulturally as well as aesthetically as we travel through time with this tree. We should always try to align on the now and the later, being constructive and enjoyable throughout the development of the tree if we can. At this stage of development into refinement, it's easier to reach that balance and keep the energy moving in a positive direction. It helps maintain focus on the design goal, which is much closer than it was when this session started, or when it was looking like this. Like I mentioned before, this is full-on, no-holds-barred bonsai training from this point forward. Let's get an apex rolling on this tree as well. To form a rounded apex that communicates an older tree, I'm wiring out that long runner at the top of the tree. From here, I'm going to start to form a base for foliage to populate the top in the form of a kind of small bonsai on top of the big bonsai. The long runner is being bent way down and over the back of the tree, revealing that side growth to replace it as the top. The runner will become a sort of main branch that also fills the back of the apex. The smaller branches around it will take the place of secondary branches and back branches through to the apex that will be spread out to round out the appearance at the top. This creates a structure that exposes light to the interior to encourage more buds to develop into finer branches that can be trimmed into the dense foliage pad needed at the apex. Over time, new adjustments will need to happen on this apex as new smaller branches are needed to replace the ones being created now. When they get too thick, we will need smaller ones to replace them to keep them in proportion. In this session, we have successfully created a few foliage pad foundations that help better define each branch. By doing so and placing them at these locations, we've created some gaps or portals into the main trunk to give the tree some depth. Also, there are some defined spaces between the branches and the start of an apex. A final pass to remove any foliage that will draw energy away from what's needed to develop, and this is where we stop, to allow the fall and winter seasons to pass until spring arrives. New growth will be left to extend through spring, with minor adjustments to the foliage to redirect energy, but leaving it mostly alone until summer. That will be the next time any major work will need to be addressed, such as looking for opportunities to improve ramification and the overall silhouette, and closely examining the live vein to see where I can successfully create an effective shari that will frame that lower trunk curve and finally refine that jin on the left. That will be covered here when it's time. For now, however, it's back on the bench to wait for winter. So, when is a tree ready to make that shift from underdevelopment to refinement? Each tree progresses at its own rate, as well as the person working with it. I may not have been ready for this tree way back when it first entered my garden, and it was definitely not ready for the work that was done to it back then as well. There may have been chances to restyle it over the last 25 years that just didn't align with where I was at the time as well. I'm glad that we finally aligned and found a satisfying solution. Very often when working with bonsai, time tends to be the answer. Thanks for taking the time to watch this step in this tree's development. I'm looking forward to sharing all of the progress it'll make in the coming year or two with you, and not have to wait a quarter century until the next session. Thanks for watching. I hope you gained some helpful insights from this little video. Maybe like and subscribe and leave a comment below that includes hashtag bonsai in the comment to be in the running for the Chinese Elm giveaway when this channel reaches 5,000 subscribers. And possibly check out the book or the t-shirt links in the show more section below. There's even like a hat available now because bonsai stuff is kinda cool. And so are you for helping support this channel.